Hey everyone, my name is Ierie, and this is Reminisce with This. Each day of the week, I sit and reminisce with you on all of the things that bring me joy. From the different collections, the different movies and TV shows, but why I got into them is the memories that are intertwined with them, why I stay enjoying these time and time again over the years, and why they continue to bring me the joy that I honestly felt as a kid. As I dive into these videos each day of the week, I am reminded of those moments. And honestly, being able to hold and pose these figures and stuff like that and kind of play around with them just like I did as a kid brings me a sense of serenity and something that I may have forgotten. You know, a lot of the times I have just my figures on display and I don't really get to enjoy them at the capacity as I used to as a kid. But as I pick them up and I enjoy them time and time again now, I'm reminded of those times. These particular figures are going to be what I show for What's That Wednesday. These are not actually something that I showcased in that video a couple weeks ago regarding all of the different collections that I had. I don't have these on display simply because I just don't have room for them at the moment. And I feel like Teen Titans kind of need their own display setting. Just like all my other Marvel figures and the figures behind me, I feel like they really do need something to really showcase the awesomeness that they are. And honestly, I absolutely love these figures. The only figure that I actually have still from my childhood is the Slade figure. All of the other figures have been rebought from over the years. And I have been reminded just by picking them up of those times. I can remember back when I was living in Idaho, same time period that I went to that comic book store. And I remember my mom worked, if I'm not mistaken, at a Kmart, and being able to go down those toy aisles and see these Teen Titan figures time and time again. I was lucky enough to have a discount regarding these figures and being able to get them and enjoy them over and over and over again over the years, to the point where I pretty much worked them into oblivion, down to little pieces and things like that. But I appreciated and valued them so much so that while watching the Teen Titans show, or not being able to always watch it, but being able to create my own episodes or reenact the episodes that were at hand based off the figures that I had at the time. And I honestly am reminded about the joy of going down those toy aisles and the reason why I still have so much joy going down toy aisles today and being able to see all the new and exciting figures and toys that they have. Now, I wasn't always able to get new toys and things like that, but it was always still fun to go and visit my mom at work, but also go and check out the new things that they had for Teen Titans. They were constantly coming out with new things from 2003 to 2005, so it was always fun to see what was coming out, even though if I may not have gotten them. I was able to reimagine certain items that maybe I didn't have, but was able to use my imagination using things that I did have to kind of pretend that that was what the item was. And sometimes I was lucky enough to get some of those items, from the cars that they had to the little town structures or different things that they were honestly coming out with at the time. Some of the coolest toys that I thought and still think about today, at that time, I thought they were pretty awesome. Now, the only downside over time, of course, as you played with a lot of these figures, is because they have these small little joints and pegs in them that were metal, they were easier to break, and they did break quite honestly often. And with this particular Beast Boy that is the clear figure, that is one of the issues that I have with him. His little leg has broken, but I still am able to keep it in such pristine condition as best as possible considering his leg is broken. But nonetheless, he's still a placement in my collection where, you know, I don't necessarily need to pose him too much, as I do have the regular Beast Boy, but it's still a staple into my collection. A lot of these certain figures were of like 2-packs, and or they came with their little vehicles and stuff like that. So that was how some of these figures, you were only able to get them, but some of them were single figures like the Slade, and he came with a bunch of little accessories and things like that to battle the Teen Titans, because of course you needed some villains. Now this isn't the entirety of the collection. I am missing quite a few of the figures still, but for what it is, these are the figures that I had as a kid, except for maybe a couple, but I still am able to enjoy these figures. The Teen Titans has always been one of my all-time favorite shows and one of my favorite comic book runs from when I had the Teen Titans comics, the ones that I have talked about already. The Teen Titans have always brought me so much joy, and being able to see them in different structures of TV, from the live action TV show Titans, that was one of my favorites. Now, I can say that Teen Titans Go isn't necessarily my favorite by any means. I have watched a couple episodes, wasn't able to get into it, but I still know that there's a placement for it for other generations, the younger generations. And honestly, I'm happy that this type of team and the Teen Titans as a whole has been able to continue and live on through many different generations. I know a lot of the people that got into Teen Titans Go when it first came out were around the same age that I was when Teen Titans, the animated series, came out. I have been able to really just have that appreciation now as I've looked back on it, as I can be quite honest now that during that time when it came out, I was a little bitter. I was bitter that they didn't bring out, or bring back, I should say, the original animated series, because that was one of the greatest shows for me and still continues to live on to that. I own every episode on DVD, and I honestly miss the show. I wish that it would come out with at least a new season, just kind of how X-Men 97 has decided to revamp or bring back, I should say, the original series, or continue it on from the last season. I'm hopeful that maybe somewhere down the line they'll do the same with Teen Titans. Teen Titans, these figures really brought me so much joy. The amount of times that I had so many adventures with them, and just being able to play with them with my sisters and sometimes the neighborhood kids. Teen Titans was really a big, I wouldn't say a fad per se, but it was one of those things that, not many kids got to watch where we were growing up. It was, a little bit more on the violent side for most kids growing up where we did grow up, either in Utah or Idaho, from where we lived, that not many people got to see these types of shows. But those that did, it was fun to be able to bring out our toys and our collections and play with them and, have these adventures together. But for the most part, 90% of the time, I spent my time playing with my sisters regarding these figures and having our own little imaginations run free as we created our own episodes, our own battles and things that we did. And quite fun, this isn't honestly one of the funniest parts of it, is that we used to bring our CD player outside, and we would have certain music that we'd be playing as that would be like the background music for our battle scenes or whatever it may be. And honestly, it's probably music that wasn't necessarily completely appropriate for, having it blasting outside for everybody in the world to see, or hear, I should say, but we did it anyways. We listened to all kinds of music, and as I look back on it, probably seemed like we were deranged children, because we were listening to things like Evanescence in, the third grade, and, just a bunch of different other darker toned artists. But then we would switch it up to Disney songs, and it would be just a lot of fun where we were able to make it just our own imagination and how things would twist and turn, just like the Teen Titans show it was. And so being able to have these figures in hand now just reminds me of all of those simpler times that me and my sisters got to enjoy. These particular figures really do hold such a huge memory placement for me, and it's not just because of the times that I played with them, but more so from the memories I made with my sisters, or being able to see my mom at her job at the time and going on these adventures. Because normally after we went to Kmart, I would stop in at that comic book store. So many of those memories are intertwined with that comic book store while we lived there in Idaho, and that gas station where we were able to get the candy by the pound. And it was kind of like a whole day adventure. And my stepdad's sister worked at Sonic, so we were able to stop at Sonic to get a slushie. And it was always just so much fun to be able to be a kid, get on our bikes and just ride around town and just go on these adventures, and have in a way my own Teen Titans experience, right? It was one of those things that I used to pretend that I was this superhero teenager, or whatever may it be, kid, going on these adventures and doing these things that most people don't necessarily do these days, right? As kids, there's so much of the iPad kids, or however you want to talk about it, but we played outside a lot, even with our toys. We cultivated these adventures, may it be with our toys or just going out and getting into the world and being able to just see what the world had to offer. And it was always so much fun, honestly. And it just brings me joy thinking about it. It brings me joy thinking back of walking down, the Kmart toy aisles, and then going to the comic book store after picking up quite a bit of candy that I probably shouldn't have eaten. And I'm not gonna lie, they would ask us how, as kids, like, how much did you put into this? How much did it weigh? This and that and the other. And of course they, it was by pound, but they didn't weigh it at the register. So we would tell them, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, they would ask us how many pieces are in there. And we would say it was 25 pieces, knowing that there was more than 25 pieces in there, and they would ring us up for 25 pieces. And, it was always so much fun that these, people at that particular gas station didn't bat an eye. They saw us kids being kids, and, they saw us with, at least myself, with comics in my hand, toys in my hand, and riding around on my bike. And it was kind of like a almost everyday kind of a thing. So it was something that I can look back on fondly regarding these moments, and coming home with new toys when I could, and just being in appreciation now that I got to have those adventures. I don't think that I appreciated them as much as I did back then. And, there was a lot of different emotions and things like that. And, as a kid that moved around a lot, it was definitely hard for me, being the odd kid, of course. Not many kids, as they got older in the different age bracket that I was in, continued to still play with toys or was interested in the things that I was. And that's honestly what kept me grounded a lot of the times. Moving from town to town or new school to new school, my toys stayed consistent. My toys were something that I was able to always hold on to and enjoy no matter where we went. And the memories that I have built along the way with all the different places that we lived really brings me joy just reminiscing on them. Despite as a kid, how much I absolutely disdained moving time and time again, I get to appreciate it at a deeper capacity now. I get to experience them from a different point of view. So honestly, these figures bring me a lot of joy. So we'll go ahead and run through just a few of the figures here, or I should say the figures that I have here. The only figure I probably won't pick up is the see-through Beast Boy, as his leg might come apart, and I'd rather not have to deal with that. But starting from my right going forward, there are a couple of figures that I have forgotten their names, which are going to be the pair in here. It goes beyond me. But of course, we have Bumblebee. Now, the funny thing about this, when I repurchased this Bumblebee figure, she did not have her wings, and I actually still had the wings from my original Bumblebee, but you can kind of see that I had given her like tattoos of sorts on her wings as a kid, as I thought, you know, that was kind of, in a way, I kind of did that type of stuff when I was playing with other kids with their figures, that they had similar figures. That was how I was able to identify what my figures were, but I also thought it gave them a sense of battle structure, like they had been through quite a few battles and stuff like that. So of course we have if I'm not mistaken, they were brothers. I would have to rewatch the show. It's been some time since I've seen these characters, but I always had these. They were just someone that, not necessarily that I just said necessarily twice, but not ones that I really always wanted. It just, they so happened to come with figures that I did want, so I had them. And of course we have Speedy here. Now, of course, when I bought this figure, it did not come with his bow. It did come with his little backpack with his arrows. Now as well, this particular figure, one of the legs is like shorter than the other, so it is harder to pose him as you saw him fall over. But honestly, I had so many adventures with this one. Like I was saying, this particular Slade figure I have had since I was a little kid, since probably it was released. And as you can see, the joints are a little loose. He has lost all of his fingers from how much I played with him on one of these hands here. There we go. So there's all of his fingers that have gone, and then you have the little bit here. But, you know, it was one of those figures that, you know, had different accessories and you were able to play around with it. There's this little movement action feature on the back. And of course, you always had to have Slade, as he was the main baddie in the Teen Titans verse. Then you have, of course, Tara in her Slade uniform, or I should say, yeah, I guess you could say uniform, but you know, it came with her power effect, which of course, again, this is the same power effect that I had as a kid. As you can see, there is that same kind of design or whatever I used to, you know, kind of do the same with Bumblebee's wings. As when I got this particular figure, she did not come with her accessory. Then of course, for the original team, we got Beast Boy here. Of course, these weren't superposable besides their legs. The hands don't really have, they do move up and down, but they don't have any joints in them. And then of course the next up is Starfire. Now they did come out with a few different iterations of these figures from when they first released, and over the years when they released more of them, they got better in the facial structures. And you'll see with the Cyborg that I have, the two of them, you'll see what I mean by the differences. This is the Robin that comes with his little gun feature, which of course is how he swings around from here to there. You know, that's what he uses. Now, why they gave certain figures these guns, beyond me, as I don't really recall Raven ever using a weapon like this in the show, but they did give these figures the accessories. Now, Raven's cape here, it does come off, but over time you could kind of see she has a little cape there, and that's what they have for, if I'm not mistaken, all of the Ravens. But with that, when you're constantly taking the cape off of this, it does start to rub off the paint on the sides. So that was a little bit, you know, frustrating. But then you have this Cyborg here, right? So as you can see, there's that. But then you look at this Cyborg, and you see that their faces and heads, like this particular head, is a lot smaller than this one. This one is the first iteration of the Cyborg, if I'm not mistaken, where it doesn't have those, like, posability joints, where this one, you know, you can kick it back that way, where that's as far as it will go. So, you know, the hinge on him, there we go, definitely came into a factor where some of them, when they first were released, did not have those hinges. So, this was something that I was happy to have regardless. Of course, like I said, I'm not going to really pick up that Beast Boy too much. It is just that clear green plastic, which, it kind of sucks that most green, like clear plastics, break very easily. I have the original Terra in her regular uniform. I absolutely loved Terra. She was one of my favorites. So, of course, I always had her playing in rocks and things like that, where that's how a lot of these figures got broken as a kid. And then lastly, I have the White Raven. Now, this particular figure was bought by now an old acquaintance, a person that I honestly am no longer friends with, and I'm not going to gloss over that, but they did buy that figure for me, and it is like one of those sought out figures that I never actually had as a kid. It's one of those that I really did want so badly, but it was so hard to find. So being able to get this on the secondary market where they bought it, this particular friend at the time bought it for me, it really was the last figure that I really, really wanted to complete the figures that I had as a kid. And so that's really what honestly, when it comes to the Teen Titans, that's what I had growing up as a kid. This Raven, of course, was the only one that I really didn't, and maybe a couple here and there, like the clear plastic Beast Boy, and, just a couple, maybe the different iterations of the cyborgs here. I didn't necessarily have, and maybe some of the figures that have the posability of their knees, I didn't necessarily have. I had more of the first iterations as I got older, and the years progressed as they got the newer ones. The only times that I was able to get the newer ones is if the old ones broke, or if I saved up my own money, as my family doesn't necessarily think that having more than one was necessary. And I understand that. And, as a kid, I didn't, I was frustrated because I wanted to get those figures. But I digress. These figures are that placement of that childhood that I got to enjoy and pretend I was a superhero in my own adventures. Like I said, I went on all types of adventures with my bike, and I trotted through the town. Now, my bike was super big for me, but I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed going to all of these spots and stopping off and seeing the people that I came to know and loved. And it was something that I can reflect on more and more and have that appreciation for it. These Teen Titan figures really are that kind of that memory of that childhood time. Like, this is one that when I look at these figures, I'm instantly brought back to 2005, when I was able to start purchasing these figures. Now, these figures, like I said, did come out around 2003 and so on, but it was really around the time that we moved to Idaho that we were able to get a lot of these figures, at least for myself, and I was able to purchase a lot of them and enjoy them. And I am still in awe of them, despite how less articulated they are, I'm still in awe of how much I was able to enjoy them. These particular figures actually were the ones that got me into the DC Justice League figures that came out at the time too, that did not really have a whole lot of posability, besides like their arms moving forward and back and things like that. Now, I don't really have any of those today, but for the most part, it was because of these figures that brought me into those those particular figures, because I loved these so much. And once these slowly faded away and was honestly harder to get, I started buying those DC figures of the Justice League and from the show. And don't get me wrong, I loved watching the show, but Teen Titans is where it started for me when it came to the figure collection for these particular figures for that time period. So that's basically all I have to say on all of this. This has just been something that I've really enjoyed and I continue to enjoy. And I wanted to share that, as these were not something that you could see in that video. But I'm happy that I got to share them, because like I said, I'm able to really remember a lot more of the simpler times and the moments that I may have not appreciated as much. So with that being said, thank you for sitting with me on What's That Wednesday and enjoying this, hopefully. And I would love to talk more about Teen Titans in the comments if you would love to, and what you thought about these toys, if you ever had them as a kid, and or if you enjoyed watching the Teen Titans show or Titans, or if you enjoyed Teen Titans Go as well. I would love to hear your feedback. If you liked the video, go ahead and leave me a like. If you like my videos as well, go ahead and subscribe. I do put out new videos every day of the week for a different theme. So, of course, I really do appreciate the time that you spend with me, as my videos can be sometimes kind of long. But with that being said, I appreciate you nonetheless. So, thank you, and per usual, if you have not been told you are loved, cherished, and or cared about today, just know I love you, I cherish you, and I care about you. Thank you for stopping in and reminiscing with me. Until tomorrow, I will catch you next time. Peace.